Alrighty, so let's start with a demo. So here I have a list of maps, and for these list of maps, the players can choose to save the map. And once they save it, if they go on My Maps, then they'll be able to see it here. Now, a cool thing that I implemented is the ability for the player to save their data so that the next time that they start up, they'll still be able to see their saved data. And just to show off further on this demo, I'll go ahead and save a few maps. So I save this one, and this one. Then if we go in My Maps, we see that there are 3 new saved maps. Then let's go ahead and reload it. And if I go on My Maps, you see that the 3 maps are still there. Alright, so the data that, or the location where I stored the saved data is in the resources folder. So it's player data. And it's a simple JSON file with the map data. Okay, and then for the data class that I use to represent the saved data, it looks like this. It's very simple. It's a player data class with a username variable and a maps variable, which is a mapping from ID to game map. As for how this is done, I created something called the player data API. Now, this is actually something that's very, very simple. So all it is an object for clients to save their data. So when they save their the player data, it takes in a player data class. It locks this here object so that you don't deal with any like concurrent save issues. It uses the JSON serialization to encode the player data to a JSON string, and then it saves the JSON string into the player data.json file. Then afterwards it finishes. And then I also have a method for getting the player data. So for this is very simple. I get a lock so that players can't save while I'm still getting the data. So it reads from the player data.json file, and if it exists, then it returns it after decoding from the JSON. And if it doesn't exist, then it returns an empty player data class. So a very simple API. All right, and in order to do this, you need to remember to enable kotlinx serialization on your project. So to do that, you can go on build.gradle.kts, and then here you can enable serialization by adding this line here. So serialization JSON, and all it does is it adds the dependencies for the kotlinx serialization. Okay, so here, yeah, it applies the kotlinx serialization plugin, and then it adds it into the common main API as a dependency for the JSON serializer. Sorry. Okay. And yeah, that is basically it. So you can take a look and see how this is actually used. So if we look at the references here, see that it's used in the scene init. Okay, so when on the first initial load, I save the player data just so that a new file exists. And then for now, I just defaulted to using Xenotactic as the username. And then if we look down here, so when the save button is clicked, it launches this coroutine to save the player data. And then is it used anywhere else? Okay, so I have another save button. Click here, and this is for the My Maps panel. Probably don't need that actually, but yeah. So yeah, this is basically it. I have it as an object, so it's basically a singleton. Don't need to worry about multiple instances of this API, and that makes it very simple. So, all right. What else? Oh yeah, something else to note is that this is currently using the resource virtual file system, but for your code, you might actually want to use another path. So the resource VFS always has the root directory in your resources folder, which is in your project common main resources here. So this folder right here. But you may want to save it somewhere else. And if you do, then you can try using the root local or application VFS. And then that will be based on your computer local directory, I think. So you can try that as well. Alrighty, I think that is basically it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.